In all of the problems involving equation solving, I'll be using this transposition method. Well, let me explain this as I proceed with an equation like this. A minus B equals negative C plus D. To solve for A, this is what you used to do if you're a student in the United States especially. You add B on both sides of the equation and you get A equals negative C plus D plus B. Well, that is fine, but you're not going to do that with me. We will skip this process of adding and subtracting business and we will get to the point. I'll teach you a way of solving equations quicker, and this is how you do. You can think of this equation A minus B equals negative C plus D as this. Don't even think about addition and subtraction of these entities. You have positive A, negative B equals negative C and positive D. Whenever you move or transpose an entity to the other side of the equation, it changes the sign. Okay, let's transpose negative b to the right side of the equation. Then it changes the sign and it becomes positive b. So A equals negative C plus D plus B. Now let's transpose positive D to the left side of the equation. Then it becomes negative D. So A minus D equals negative C plus B. Let's practice this one more time. All right, this is the original equation. Let's transpose positive A to the other side of the equation. It becomes negative A. So negative B equals negative C plus D minus A. Now let's transpose negative C to the other side of the equation. And it becomes positive C. So C minus B equals D minus A. Well, now without this animation, let's practice this rewriting equation using the transposition. What is C? To get C, you must transpose negative C to the left and transpose everything on the left to the right. Then C equals negative A plus B plus D. Well, what is negative B plus C? Well, you transpose negative C to the left and transpose positive A to the right. So it is negative A plus D. Well, what about negative D? You transpose positive D to the left and transpose everything on the left to the right. So it is negative A plus B minus C. All right, last one. Let's transpose all the entities on the right to the left. Then it becomes A minus B plus C minus D equals 0. All right, that was the transposition technique involving addition and subtraction in the equation. Next, I'll teach you how to rewrite equations involving multiplication and division using the transposition technique. Let's suppose we have an equation AB equals C over D. In this situation, you are taught to either multiply or divide both sides of the equation to solve the equation for a certain variable. You're not going to do that with me. We will skip this process and just get to the point using the transposition technique. Here in the multiplication and division case, you must tag every number or variable with either a numerator or a denominator. A can be considered as A over 1, so we call this A a numerator. Same for B. And this C is a numerator and D is a denominator. Okay, here's the transposition technique for the multiplication and the division. If you transpose a numerator to the other side of the equation, it becomes a denominator. If you transpose a denominator to the other side of the equation, it becomes a numerator. Let me show you how to do this. Let's transpose B in this equation. Since B is a numerator, if you transpose it to the other side of the equation, it becomes a denominator. So A equals C over BD. Let's transpose D in this equation. Since D is a denominator, if you transpose it to the other side of the equation, it becomes a numerator. So ABD equals C. Let's transpose C in this equation. Since C is a numerator, if you transpose it to the other side of the equation, it becomes a denominator. So AB over C is equal to 1 over D. Well, by now you may say, what's a big deal? I could have done this by multiplying or dividing by something on both sides of the equation and get the same result. Well, the real benefit of using the transposition technique comes in when you have to transpose more than one entity across the equation. Let's transpose A and C. Since A is a numerator, after you transpose it to the right, it becomes a denominator. And since C is also a numerator, after transposition to the left, it becomes a denominator. So B over C equals 1 over AD. Let's transpose B and D. Well, since B is a numerator, after you transpose it to the right, it becomes a denominator. And since D is a denominator, after the transposition to the left, it becomes a numerator. So AD equals C over B. Now you're ready to rewrite equations rather quickly. Let's begin.